Hey everybody, I'm your host Pauly Nices, and welcome back to another episode of I Should Be Doing My Homework, and instead I'm playing a video game I have hundreds of hours in. So let's get it going. Kerbal Space Program is definitely one of my favorite games. Let's go ahead and call this Procrastination Space Program. Nice. And you know what, as far as flags go, this looks pretty cool. Let's go with that one. I actually normally go in here and screw with all the settings and make it easier, but I'm just gonna make this normal. We're gonna roll with it and see how it goes. So sandbox, you don't have to worry about money or science. Science, you don't have to worry about money. Career, you're looking to get science, collect science from experiments, and you have to worry about money. So we're gonna do that, and we're gonna see how it goes. I actually haven't played this option without any changes to difficulty, probably in forever. I'm not sure. Anyways, one of the things I do change on that pretty frequently is I make it so that there's not any penalties for declining missions in the mission control, because as missions come up that I don't like and I don't want to take, I usually end up canceling those just so I can get new ones. But without that option enabled, if you cancel them, it actually hurts your reputation. So it's going to be a little bit trickier, and we're actually going to have to, well, care about things. So, all right. So in here, I guess I'll make this kind of a tutorial. In here, you have your vehicle assembly building. This is usually for your actual vertical launch rockets. Over here, you have your space plane hangar. As it says, it's for making space planes, and here's the runway for that. You know, SSTOs and things like that. You can also just make, you know, little airplanes for around the planet and stuff like that. But anyways, and here's mission control. So right now, we have a max of 2 contracts that we can pick up. They usually go from easy to hard from the top down. So let's go ahead and grab this one. This one, you get an advance, so we get $2,000 in advance. We have $25,000 up here. On completion, you get $41,000 and 1 science and 2 reputation points. And if you, let's see, achieve goal and complete. Oh, and on completion, yeah, you get this much. That's objectives review. Okay, so you have an objective. When you complete the objective, you get that. For the mission itself, you have an advance, and then you have a completion as well. And then if you cancel this, if you cancel the mission after you've already taken it, there'll be penalties and stuff. So let's go ahead and grab this, gather scientific data, and launch our first vessel. So we're at a max. We can't grab any more. Those are kind of grayed out or whatever. Let's go ahead and make a rocket. Really simple. Werner von Kerman is great. He gives you a lot of tips. I don't care because I've played this way too much. Let's go ahead and put the flea booster on here. It's a little solid rocket booster. Has our little fuel. You can adjust how much fuel it has. You can adjust the actual thrust on here, which is great because with solid rocket boosters, you can't throttle up and down. Once you hit launch, that's what you get. It runs until it's out, which is great. And that's pretty similar for most rockets in life. They're, you know, in the real world, they're solid rocket boosters and they don't really have thrust on them. But anyways, and then here's your variants you can put down here, kind of stylize them. Let's do orange. Looks great. Okay, and then for utility, let's go under here and grab a parachute because we actually want to come back down to Earth. Funny enough. Okay, so one of our objectives, if we come over here, is we need to gather scientific data from Kerbin. So recover or transmit any science experiment data from Kerbin to achieve this goal. So it doesn't matter if we get it while on the ground or up in the air. According to this mission, it doesn't matter. So now, one thing about Kerbal Space Program. Actually, let's go ahead and go back here. So let's get rid of this. So if you come here, you can see that there's these modes. It's a cycle symmetry count. So if you grab this, it's only going to put 1 on here. Okay, you see that? But since this game actually does a pretty good job, for the most part, at simulating physics, you're going to want to make sure, as much as you can, that your ship, your shuttle, whatever, is pretty balanced. Because if you just leave this on here and you launch it, there's going to be a lot more air resistance on this side, and it's going to pull you that way and tip your rocket over, and it will not be stable. So what you can do is you hit X on the keyboard, and you'll notice that goes to kind of a two little yellow triangles here. That's signifying that if you put that down, there's now two. They are actually wrapped around perfectly in symmetry around this base part right here. So it's all balanced out. So resistance over here should balance out, and you now have a pretty stable rocket, theoretically. Okay, so that's going to be our science. We can pick up some science there. These are personal things of jetpacks. We don't need to worry about that. We've got our science tab. We did that. Communication, electrical, thermal, ground, aerodynamics. We have basic fins. These are good for keeping you, you know, the pointy end facing up, but we don't have to worry about that quite yet. Robotic, structural. This is a modular girders, just basic construction stuff. We don't have to worry about that. Command and control, and then engines and fuel tanks and pods. This one, the onion, let's see here. It has crew capacity of 1. But I believe, yeah, this one has a blader on it, so it's good for re-entry. We don't have to worry about that. We're not going that high. And then I also want to say, right mouse button, man, I want to say that this one doesn't have, oops. I want to say this one doesn't have, like, a command wheel on it? Reaction wheel, yeah. Okay, so if you look at this one, there's no reaction wheel on that. So this one has a reaction wheel. Basically what reaction wheels are little electric motors that spin around a whole bunch of flywheels inside of them. And they make it so that you can kind of rearrange your ship in space as it's moving around without actually using little thrusters or anything like that. And so it's pretty nice to have just for stability purposes and things like that. Okay, another thing over here. So we have our money right here. Is that our Delta V? I think it is. No? What is this? I actually don't even know what that is. Honestly, I really don't pay much attention to things. It's kind of bad. Okay, we will go over this. Here's center of mass. You can display that. Center of thrust. And then aerodynamic overlay, which is great. These things are pretty useful, especially when you're making planes, to make sure that they fly correctly. As long as your rocket's pretty symmetrical, I don't worry about them too much, just for basic designs. Coming over here, let's see here. Yeah, we can get an engineer's report. It shows how many parts we have. We're pretty early on. We have pretty crappy base parts and launch and the launch pad and everything like that. So we're pretty limited. Based on us being an early space program, we can only have an 18-ton ship, and we can only have a max of 30 parts. There's a max height, width, and length as well, and we have to update and upgrade our launch pad to be able to increase those stats. So right now it's pretty basic, but that's okay. Here's our contracts that we went over, our missions. Here's an alarm clock, pretty nice stuff that you can create alarms for when you want to actually do space maneuvers and things like that. And here's kind of messages from the space program itself, and from Werner and whoever else, and we don't have anything there since we haven't. But like when you complete missions and stuff like that, you'll get messages back from them. Here's our staging over here. Sorry if this is pretty small. I should probably like increase the UI or something, maybe. But over here, you have the different stages. We have the first stage, the 0th stage, so they go up and count down to 0. So this one, our rocket's going to launch first. We have 732 meters per second of delta V. That's basically it stands for change in velocity. It's basically our thrust, our power, or whatever. All of that energy in that rocket, that's how much we have of it. So if we were out in space and we fired our engine, we'd have 732 meters per second of energy in that engine, so we could change our speed that much before it would run out. Kind of useful stat. This one is our parachute, so obviously we're going to need that. Okay, that's the basics of KSP, really. There's a whole bunch of little other things, and this is still, vanilla, so very basic, but it's surprisingly complicated. So if we go in here, we have Jeb. Jebediah is our famous pilot. If you've watched any KSP videos, you've probably heard of him. He's kind of the famous jokester. We have Bill, our engineer, Bob, our scientist, and then Valentina, our other pilot. So you can kind of change who you want here. The pilots are great though because they have, if they're piloting the rocket, they have more abilities than an engineer or scientist. So these guys have special abilities as well. If you look at them, right under here it says engineers are capable of repairing broken parts, if at all possible. Scientists can boost the value of data from science experiments. And then pilots provide assistance in flying the vessel, effects stability assist, and full vessel control without ComNet access. So if you put a scientist into a pilot, just as into the pilot spot of the command pod and there's no one else here, you won't have full control without having direct access to the actual Space Center itself. So, okay, let's go ahead and launch this. All right, so here we are on the launch pad. Like I said, it is pretty basic. It just looks like someone just shot off a whole bunch of fireworks for the 4th of July or something like that, and it just beat to hell. You can see out here, I never really noticed this, all the like cracks in it and all that stuff. That's great. You know, actually, one second, I'm gonna screw with the settings and see if we can make this look any nicer. Okay, didn't see too many options here, but I did see the ability to bump up the UI scaling, so it should be a lot better for you guys. Okay, let's go ahead and launch this in 5, 4, oh, and to launch, spacebar. Spacebar cycles through the actual stages there. So 5, 4, 3, 2, wait, hold on a second. You can get actual science in different places. So if we have this mystery goo science containment unit right here, and we observe that, we can get 3 science right here, and it says from the launch pad. So we can grab that. If we come over here and we look at Jebediah Kerbin, we right click on the command pod, there's a thing called a crew report we can get. So this is also from the launch pad, so we can go ahead and keep that. We can do an EVA, which I think stands for extra vehicular activity. We can pop out here. We can do an EVA report right here. And so that's more science, and then we can board back onto the shuttle or this rocket. So now let's go ahead and launch off, and I'll show you a couple other things. So once we launch, so we have our first milestones. We have performed an EVA test at home. Cool. All right, fine. We can come over here. Let's kind of pin our contracts here. So we're going to launch. As soon as we launch, this should be achieved. And then we're gathering the scientific data is when we come back to it. So let's launch. There we go. We've achieved that. And then let's go ahead and observe our mystery goo right here. And yeah, check it out. It is now while flying at Kerbin. Another thing, I didn't toggle this, but if you press T on the keyboard, that toggles SAS, which is kind of your stability assist. So make sure you have that. It just uses reaction control wheels and things like that to keep you more stable. If you come here and try and do another crew report, you can only carry one of those at a time. At least there's something you can hop out of the shuttle or the rocket, you can grab it and go back in, but we can't do that right now because we don't have the skills. You actually, if you see this, cannot disembark while off of Kerbin service. So that requires an actual upgrade. So now we're just kind of chilling up in the air, waiting for this to come down. Let's go ahead, and you want to make sure that your parachute, it can turn yellow and then red. Red means it'll disintegrate. Yellow means it's dangerous. Gray means it's safe to go. We're decently up in the atmosphere, like 13,000 meters, but we can go ahead and fire that off. It'll kind of help slow us down. And then we can wait for ourselves to come back down to Earth. If you look at your keyboard, if you're playing this, there's kind of the right arrow, the greater and the less, greater than and lesser than, little alligator mouths, whatever you want to call them, little brackets. You can click right on that, and there's a time warp option, which will kind of help bring you back down. And you can toggle those up and down to a maximum of 4. That time warp happens, you can go up to 4 when you're in the atmosphere and you're being affected by physics. When you're out in space, I think it goes up to like 1,000 or 10,000 or something crazy. You got to be careful with time warp inside the atmosphere though, because it also multiplies all of the physics simulations that you're feeling. So the... Oh, some nice little graphical glitches. So if you're not careful, you can kind of rip your ship apart. So I usually try not to go over like 2 or 3, but especially when you're going slow like this, it's nice for just completing missions quicker. I usually turn that off right before we hit the ground though. Here we go. Awesome. So now we can actually do a little bit more science as well. Like I said, we can do the EVA report. We can do an EVA report right here, and you can see it says Kerbal Shores, not the launch pad. So if we grab this and we right click on the capsule, we can take the data, and it says it's grabbing all those and we're collecting all that information, and we can reboard, and then from there he stored it, and we can do one more crew report. Because as you see, it doesn't have the little number next to it indicating we have it. So let's grab a new one. And there you go. It's different from the one on the launch pad. So let's keep that one. Okay, so we're finished with our first mission. We've launched our vessel. Now if you come over to recover vessel, click on that. And there we go. We've got 22.8 science earned. For a total of 33 science, which is great. Got some science from the mission itself, and we got a whole bunch of money. If you remember, we were at like 25,000 credits before. In recovering our actual spacecraft, we get funds back from that, which is great. Here's all the science we got from the different science experiments we did, and you can see the information about those. And then our crew, and he gained 1 XP, so you can level up your crew members. And we got 22 total reputation points, so you can see we're actually not in the middle of this bar anymore. We're kind of up in the green now, which is great, because with higher reputation you can get better missions and things like that. It's pretty cool. So anyways, with this money, I haven't gone through everything, but let's go ahead and go through the rest. I talked about the vehicle assembly buildings and the spaceplane hangar and mission control, launch pad, runway. Over here we have the tracking station. The tracking station is pretty cool. It's just this interactive map that's showing you the current location and positions of everything in the solar system. I'm gonna call it solar system. Don't flame me. I know it's different. I know this is Kerbal and not Earth and whatever, but you've got the sun over here, and I think it's like Kerbal or something. And you have all these different planets rotating around those, and you can click on them. You can see their velocity, their altitude, all that stuff. But you can see we have Moho, Eve, we have Kerbal, we have Duna, Drez is around here somewhere, Jewel, Elu. Where's Drez a moon? I forget. I think Drez might be a moon. Either way, you can scroll out and you can see where they're all located. Oh, there's Drez. Yeah, no, I was right. And so if you zoom all the way in, then you can just look at our little Kerbal system itself. And we have Minmus and the Mun. I just call it the moon, though. So we have 2 little moons around us. The actual Mun and Minmus. And there you go. You can see where some of the locations are for different missions and things like that. And then you can toggle all of the tracking for these things. So there's debris, there's probes, rovers, all kinds of different stuff that you can build and put out there. Here's different sites that you can see. Where is that? There we go. It'll show you different airfields that you can launch from. So pretty cool stuff. This is pretty useful for... From here you can swap between different vehicles and kind of plan your missions. Anyways, that is the tracking station. Over here we have R&D, research and development facility. You can see here we have this giant tech tree, which has a whole bunch of different kind of legs you can go off on. If you look at this, we have Engineering 101 and Basic Rocketry. You can click on those, and you can see all the different things that are unlocked by using your research points and unlocking those. It's pretty cool. So We've got fuel tanks, solid, a bigger booster, and liquid fuel. Under here is more engineering stuff if you go this way. Engineering, solar panels, more science experiments. Up here is more fuel and rockets and actual rocket parts themselves. So you got thermometer, decoupler, all those things. Usually what I would suggest is, first of all, if you don't have enough points, I would come in here and do the engineering first, just because that will give you more experiments to gather more science. So you won't get stuck not having enough science. So we have 33.8 though. Let's go ahead and research that. We'll research basic rocketry as well, get ourselves a little bit nicer engines. And then how much do we have? We have 23. Okay, so we can get one of these. Radial mount chutes and the barometer are pretty nice. Stability is nice because we can do decouplers. Let's go ahead and leave that for now, and I'll kind of show you the next steps. Here's the astronaut complex. So here's your crew. You can hire more. You can fire them. And Kerbals can die. So if you ever run out of Kerbals, here's where you're going to come to actually recruit more. They have a courage meter and a stupidity meter. I honestly have no idea what that does. I've never really paid attention. But anyways, I think this is how much it costs to hire the next astronaut. So it gets more expensive as you have larger and larger crew. But as you can tell here, we have a max crew as well. So come back out of here, and here's the admin building. You have a whole bunch of different things that you can do, these strategies that you can put on. And so you can, for example, outsource R&D. The effects are, it takes 5% of your funds income, but it yields 1 science for each of the funds that you earn from missions. The setup cost is, $76,000. So it's kind of expensive. And here's your commitments. You can actually cycle that up and commit a lot harder. So you can kind of change how much you want to actually invest in this outsourced R&D into the actual strategy itself. So 100% commitment is it takes all of your funds, but it yields 1 science for each of the funds, each of the 10,378 funds that you collect from missions and stuff like that. So kind of cool. You can balance things out. If you're like, oh, I need a lot of money, but I have way too much science, you can, change that out. There's different things here. Patents licensing, takes 5% science from contracts, yields funds, takes science from field work, yields funds, all kinds of stuff. So pretty cool. Honestly, I never really use it. There's ways that I think you can kind of break the game with this though, but I'm kind of an old school player. I don't really use this much. Let's go ahead and leave the facility and take a look at what we're doing next. We finished our mission. So if we come over to mission control, you can see there's a whole bunch of different missions. You can go into the archives and see the ones that we completed, which is pretty cool. And we can go over to available, and again, we can only pick 2 of these. So one thing to keep in mind, you're going to get all these missions from different companies, and they're going to have their own little agent kind of flag on there, their logo. So you can see Rocco Max, Jebs, Sultanic, all those different things. These ones you can decline the contract, and if you look at this, there is a decline penalty, so it'll actually hit some of your reputation points. So you want to make sure you're just not spamming those, unless you change the options. So if you come here and you look at this, it says Kerbin World First Record. The agent is the actual record-keeping society. These ones you can't cancel. These ones you can't decline. These are kind of like your main storyline quests or missions, if you will. These ones are the ones that are going to be significant things like launching a rocket, escaping the atmosphere, orbiting Kerbin, orbiting the moon, landing on the moon. Kind of those big goals, those big kind of achievements that you get. So let's go ahead and find a couple of them. Escape the atmosphere might be a good one. We'll see if we're ready for that yet. This one's going to be a pretty easy one right here. So it says test this part at the launch site. You really don't have to do much on that. Observational surveys require you to actually go to different sites. These kind of suck. you actually have to launch them or get over to the site and then take crew reports over there. These are actually they're kind of actually difficult because you have to get over there. And if they're not close to an actual launch pad, it takes some travel. So a lot of times I'll use planes, but I'm not a big plane guy. I like them, but I'm not good at them. So I just kind of ignore these for the most part. So let's go ahead and grab this liquid fuel test. And let's look at this one, in flight over Kerbin. Okay, we have to test this. So they have objectives and they have these conditions you have to meet for you to be rewarded, for it to actually be considered successful. So you have to be at Kerbin, you have to be flying, you have to have an altitude of 38,000 to 41,000 meters, so kind of a small window there. And you have to have a speed of 690 to 750 meters. That's kind of tough as well. So let's go ahead and just take this one for now and see what we can do with it. Okay, let's go into the VAB. Here's our rocket from last time. And we can take a look here. And we have some new parts. If you can see, we have a fuel tank. For engines, we have our first liquid fuel engine. Here's our original flea rocket booster. And here's the hammer. So if you look at these, it's basically the same thing with like twice as much fuel. So, pretty cool. Let's see what else we have. Coupling. We now have a decoupler. So this is pretty cool. Decouplers allow us to, like the name suggests, decouple parts of our rocket and kind of, shuck those off. And it makes it so that we can have a whole bunch of different stages and get higher up in the air. So let's go ahead and put some liquid fuel tanks down. If you click Alt on the keyboard and tap on a piece, it will make a copy of that. So let's go ahead and put that there. We're going to have some fuel. Let's do one more. I'm not promising this is going to be an actual good rocket. But, All right, if you hold shift and scroll in and out, you can zoom around. And before I forget, let's do this as well. Let's grab this decoupler and put that right on the bottom of our pod right here. And that will allow us to, when we're done with this, we can decouple it and this will fly off, and then we only have to worry about recovering this pod. This stuff, the engine and stuff, will probably fall to the ground and get blown up and we won't be able to recover the money, but that's fine. We're doing pretty well on money. You get paid pretty well for contracts, so we're not going to worry about that too much. Before we forget, let's come over here to our staging. If you highlight the actual little things inside the stages themselves, you can see what's going to be activated. This one is the decoupler, and then the engine, and then the parachute. And again, it kind of goes from the bottom up. So if we fired this the way we did right now, it would decouple ourselves, and then the next stage would be the parachute and the engine. So that's not going to work. If you come down here and you click the little plus on here, you can create another stage right below the one you're highlighting. So let's do this. Let's drag the engine down, and you can see here all the delta V we have. It's about 1,000, which is great. So this will fire up the engine, and then when we click spacebar and go to the next stage, it will decouple ourselves from that engine, and then if you click it again, we have the parachute. So that all looks good, but we're not done yet. We want to escape the atmosphere. We also have this right here. Test swivel liquid fuel engine. Okay. Test. All right. So first, one of the things that you can do, I want to say, is you can actually put the thrust limiter down to like 0. And let's see if we can kind of cheese this mission real quick. Let's go ahead and, what are the requirements here? We have to be landed at the launch site. Okay, so let's go ahead and launch. I believe normally when you test it, it just kind of activates it, and so you would fly off like normal. But if we come over here and run the test, if we put our thrust limiter at 0, I think this might actually work. And then we can just recover the ship real quick. Yeah, okay. So the thrust limiter, since we set it to 0, we did run test, and it didn't launch us off. And if you looked at that, we completed the mission, the contract. So, which is pretty cool. So we can just go ahead and recover the vessel there. Really quick mission, but gives us money and some funds. Yeah, so you can see 139,700. Oh, that's the actual cost. Okay. That, actually, this is great. So if we go over here, I'm stupid. That's the actual cost of the rocket. So, yeah, you can see that go up in price. Okay, that's the actual cost of the rocket. Here's the funds you actually have. That makes sense. Okay, so we finished that mission. Let's real quick go and see if we have any new missions over here in mission control. And flee. It doesn't look like it. So let's go ahead and... Do we want to orbit? I'm not sure yet. We won't be going into orbit yet. But let's go ahead and delete all of our missions or messages. So over here, these are just kind of the messages you get. You also get these world first milestones that aren't necessarily missions, but they're large achievements, and you get money, science, and reputation points for them. So they're not tracked necessarily anywhere. Like, you can't accept them or decline them. They're just things that you get. So things such as speed records, launching your first vehicle, altitude records broken, returning to the surface, all that stuff, which are kind of cool. But let's go ahead and just get rid of those, clean those up. Let's delete all these. Yes, let's delete all those. Good. So now we don't have any messages. So let's go ahead and go into the VAB again. And then since we want to escape the atmosphere, there's kind of a couple things we have to keep in mind. Well, first of all, let's actually just launch this with the liquid fuel engine, and then I'll kind of tell you a little bit more. So originally in Kerbal Space Program, there wasn't as good of physics simulation, and basically parts wouldn't break off. You could hit the atmosphere going like 30,000 meters a second, and you would just brake really hard. Like, you'd hit the atmosphere, everything would slow down really quick, and then you'd be good to go. Since they updated that and made it a lot better, parts will fly off, they'll overheat and explode, so you have to be kind of a little bit more careful with that. Okay, so before we come over here, click T, let's toggle our SAS. RCS is a reaction control system that uses little engines, little puffers, things like that. We don't have any of those, so we're not going to worry about that. And then here's our throttle. So like I was saying, solid rocket engines don't actually really have a throttle that you can use. Liquid do. So we fired up the engine. Let's go ahead and bring our thrust limiter up to 100 so that we have full throttle control. And then if you press Shift and Control on your keyboard, you can change the throttle. So let's go ahead and bring that up and take off. I don't believe we did a crew report before while we were up in the air. Nope, so let's go ahead and grab that. We don't have any other science, but I was just showing you kind of how this goes with the decoupler real quick. Let's go ahead and try and aim over here. We can do an EVA report. Let's throttle down a little bit. We can do an EVA report and a crew report over in the water, since that's a different little biome, and we can get more science for that since we haven't collected science from there. So now we're kind of coming on a arched trajectory. We're not just going straight up and down, a little suborbital. Okay, now we're done with that. And if you look over here, our next staging again, if you look at that, you saw how it was yellow for a bit. That means if you actually deployed the parachute, there would be a chance of it ripping off. So just be careful with that. Let's go ahead and decouple. There you go. That's how those work. Let's go ahead and point ourselves towards the actual, like if you press T on this, your pod, because of physics simulation in the air, will actually face itself into the wind the way you're traveling, like the way it's meant to be. So, okay. Let's go ahead and let this go. Let's speed things up a little bit. And let it come down. I'm going to open the parachute just a little bit lower than normal, just to give us some more, a little less time before we hit the ocean, so speed up the recovery process. If I remember correctly, these parachutes open at around 500. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and just let this touch down. This part always takes a bit, so right before I touch down, I turn off the time warp just to make sure nothing funky happens. There we go. So let's go ahead and do our EVA. Let's do our EVA report from Kerbin's water, keep experiment. Let's right click on here. Let's take that crew report and then let's go ahead and reboard. And then from there, if you remember, that put the crew report into the stored data area, so now we can do one more crew report. And there you go, Kerbin's water. So let's go ahead and recover this vessel. Nice. Okay, we got 9.5 science earned. We have a total of 38, which is great. And we got 1,000 funds recovered from the parts, so we're up to 181,000 funds. I just call them dollars. And if you come over here, world's first milestone, we have broken a land distance record, altitude, land distance, splashdown of the ocean. You can just get rid of all those. Let's go ahead and go to mission control. Not really seeing any new missions. This one could totally be doable. It gives us 2 science, 21,000 funds, and we get an advance of 8,000 funds, so that's pretty good. That's like 30,000 funds. But really, these early ones are kind of, I don't know, they're kind of lackluster. Really, what I want to be focusing on right now is science. So let's go ahead and come over here, though, because we now have over 30 science, which means we have 33 science, and that's 30, 15. Okay, so yeah, we have enough to get 2 of these. Survivability is always great. This is good. This gives you heat shields that you can throw onto your pods, which makes it so that as you're coming back into the atmosphere, your pod won't blow up. It'll instead burn off what's called the ablator, and it'll slow you down. So this is pretty important, especially when you start doing like trips to the moon and Minmus, and you have to come back into the atmosphere, which we'll get to. So this is pretty good. The barometer is just another science device, which is great for getting, you know, just more science and being able to unlock more stuff. So that's a good thing to have. We have micro landing struts if we're going to actually land on different planets and stuff like that, which is pretty useful. And then we have a service bay, which allows us to kind of put junk in there instead of just throwing it on the outside of the ship, which is pretty nice, actually. And then we have radial mount chutes. So not just on top, you can stick them on the side, which is really convenient. We've got normal parachute, and then we have drogue chutes, which are just small. Yeah, you can read the description. Half-size radial mount versions. It's small, deploys up high, and gets you oriented correctly and slows you down before you fire out your main chutes, which is pretty cool. Let's grab this one. And while I do want bigger rockets, let's go ahead and go for stability, because that comes with a good nose cone, winglet, and radial decouplers. Radial decouplers are awesome. If you come into here, let's go ahead and put on another decoupler. Let's go ahead and do... should we do this? We'll see if this even works. Oops. There we go. Okay, we'll do 4 there. We try one more. This is going to be like our max here for sure. We're going to hit a limit. And then let's go over here to coupling. Remember, you want to click down here X to change that, and you can keep on pressing X, cycle through these, so you can get up to like I think 8 times symmetry or something like that. But we're just gonna do 2 for now. Let's go ahead and put those on, and then let's get our solid rockets right here. And actually, if you look at this, we have not crossed over any limits. That's pretty cool. So our mass is getting close, but we only have 18 parts and about 15.5 tons out of our maximum of 18, so we're good on that. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's take this off. Is this nose cone small? No, this one's like a large size. Is there scaling on this? There is not scaling. Okay. There's a mod called Tweak Scale that allows you to change the size of all the parts, but that is a mod, and I'm just doing vanilla on that one. So let's go ahead and actually just put that back, because this will help us with aerodynamics. And then let's just put 2 drogue chutes on here, which is great. This doesn't have a blader, so let's go ahead and grab a heat shield. But these are pretty damn heavy, and we don't need a lot. So honestly, we can just put the ablator down to 40, and that should be plenty. Okay. And aerodynamics, I think these will fit on here though. Yep, okay. So that's gonna make our rocket a lot more aerodynamic. And I guess utility-wise, can we do this? Where's our payload? Here we go. Is this the right size? Oops. It is the right size. Okay. Is that gonna work? Let's go ahead and open that up. And then let's zoom in here. And let's go ahead and grab some science stuff. By the way, so I haven't said this, but if you're now playing, just to give you more information, because we're assuming this is going to be you're brand new to KSP. If you right-click and drag around with your mouse, that's how you move the camera like that. Scrolling with the wheel takes you up and down, and then pressing Shift and scrolling allows you to zoom in and out. Okay, so let's go ahead, and then if you select items and you use WASD on the keyboard, it allows you to rotate those items. So, and also Q and E. So there you go. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and just reset this. There we go. Oh, did I screw this up? I think I might have. Let's go ahead and do this. Sometimes it gets a little funky. Is this snapping inside of it? I don't know why it is. Huh. It's like snapping through here, if you can see that. It's not really connecting to the bottom of this, which is kind of annoying. Do these eject? I don't know if they do. Let's go ahead and let's see if we can do this. Let's first put the decoupler, then let's put the heat shield, and then let's try another decoupler, and then slap that on there. Okay. That'll allow us to eject our decoupler anyways, and that might help us out. Okay, that's better now. Now we're not having problems placing this. Let's go ahead and get 2. Yeah, let's just do 2. 1 when we're landed. Actually, I mean, I think we can do 3. 1 when we're landed before we take off, 1 in the air, and then 1 when we land again. Let's go ahead and grab some other science. Mystery goo-wise, I don't think we're going to need that, because we've already got one landed and in the air. Did we get one in the ocean? I'm not sure. Let's just include 1. Let's try and center this a little bit better, though. Okay, that looks good. And then the barometer, flip these around, and let's see here. If you hold down shift and click on the keys, you can do a little bit nicer, finer adjustments. So let's go ahead and put those in there. And we should be recovering these, so we don't have to worry about this too much. Do we have any extra batteries? We don't. Okay. I'm not going to worry about communications because we have our pilot. So we don't have to worry about steering it or sending back any science. You can do that. Send it back to the Space Center, but you don't get as much science for it. Okay, where are we at? Parts. We have too many parts. Let's go ahead. You know what? This is kind of too much anyways. Let's go ahead and take one of these fuel tanks away. And then, I know I said not to do this, but let's just use one drogue chute. Okay. Alright. I think this looks good. Let's take a look at our different stages. We're going to launch these two bad boys first, then we're going to eject them, and we're going to launch or engage our main engine, which is great. That looks good. Then we're going to cut that off. We need another stage here. Then we're going to launch that stage, which is great. When we're done with that, we'll kick that one off. And then we'll have our heat shield. And when we're done with that, we'll kick that one off. And then we want one extra one for our drogue chute. So let's go ahead and drag that down there. So our drogue will fire first to slow us down to safely fire our main chute. Okay. Our goal is to escape the atmosphere. So the thing about this mission is, I don't know. It's it could be a trial by fire here, but if you just shoot up straight and down, unless you have fuel left in your engine and you can slow yourself down, there's a very real likelihood that if you just go straight up, you'll come back down through the atmosphere and there won't be enough time or wind resistance to slow you down enough, and you'll just crash into the ground going like, I don't know, 300 meters a second or something like that. And if you try and deploy your parachutes, they'll just rip off because you're going too fast. So we have to do what's called a nice gravity turn and start turning to one side or the other and start creating this kind of parabola of sorts and get ourselves on a suborbital trajectory. So we're not just going straight up, we're also going to the side. And since we have horizontal velocity going left and right, that's going to increase the amount of atmosphere that we can come in contact with. We won't be probably going as fast vertically as well, and it'll allow us to actually slow down fast enough compared to if we were just going straight up and down. And because of that, then we'll be able to deploy your chutes and be able to be okay. But if you just go straight up and down, you're going to be screwed. So let's go ahead and fire this off and start tilting to the right here. Very gently. Very gently. I don't even know if I have enough control. Oh, I do have a little bit. We're pretty good. You kind of, if you look at the bottom here of your screen, you kind of want to keep your, as much as you can, your rocket close enough to this area. Okay, I don't have as much control anymore. Let's go ahead and get rid of those. Oh! Welcome to Kerbal. Let's go ahead and see if I can salvage this. Oh god, oh god, oh god, there's some control. Oh yes, perfect. That's exactly how I wanted it. I should have put some fins on there. I should have had it fire up a little bit too. So I'm getting control from this, but since I didn't have that engine fired up, I wasn't getting control from it, so wind resistance just grabbed my rocket and just flung me all around. But you know what? Sometimes you can do some flips and recover, so we're good, we're good. What I was saying before is if you get too far outside of this, where you're pointed, this is where the actual direction your rocket ship is flying. If you get too far outside of that, a lot of times your rocket will just spin out of control, so you got to be careful with that. Okay, we're done with that. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. We can fire up our engine. I don't know why the thrust limiter is still set to 0 on that one. Probably just from prior missions. So you can tell here, blue on this nav ball means you're pointed up, orange means you're pointed down. This is the actual position your ship is traveling. So let's go ahead and... I think it's called the prograde. So let's go ahead and keep on doing this and firing up. If you click M, it will take you to the map, but you got to be careful because you're still traveling when you do this. So you're still actually like moving. It does not pause the game. So you got to be careful with that. But if you look at this, you can highlight yourself on the map here. You can see our trajectory. And you can see that our altitude is 56,000. And to escape the orbit, or escape the atmosphere, if I'm correct, if I remember, I want to say it's over 70,000 meters. So it looks like we've got some time, like we're still increasing in altitude. So let's go ahead and see if we get up to 70,000 and escape orbit, like we were talking about. It's going to be really close. Let's go ahead and just fire up a little bit and make sure we do escape the atmosphere. Okay, we should be good there. Yeah, we're fine. All right, there you go. And then you can hear the nice kind of spacey music that comes in. Me and my wife like to call it whale songs and stuff like that. There's one that sounds like whales. So if you come in here, you can look at our milestones. We broke another speed record, altitude record, we have reached space, and another land distance record. So we can get rid of those guys. And there you go. Escape the atmosphere. We finished that contract, which is pretty great. So let's go ahead and just speed up time. And then we're going to be coming back into the atmosphere. It will automatically kick you out of time warp once you start hitting the atmosphere, which is great. Let's go ahead and face away from the way we're traveling. So we're going to point backwards. This will allow us to use our engine to kind of slow us down. Check this out. So that's pretty cool. And then if we just give it some time, since we're in the upper atmosphere, we don't have to worry about wind resistance too much and heating. Let's go ahead though and actually point like this and kick off our engine. So we're gonna deploy that, and here we go. There we go. You saw that. Here's the heating effects. Here's our blader. This will protect us. I'm gonna go ahead and kick off SAS and allow just the physics effects of the wind to kind of keep us somewhat stable. I think our drogue chute's actually kind of pulling us off there. Okay, we got through there. We are coming in pretty hot, but you can see our drogue chute is good to go now. So let's pop that. There goes our heat shield. And we're actually good for our normal parachute as well. So that drogue was great. Helped slow us down quite a bit. Oh my gosh, guys, I did not do any of my science. Just a second. Okay, so just restarting this real quick. Let's go ahead and come over here. Let's do a pressure data. Let's do a temperature. Let's go ahead and keep that. Let's close that. Let's see actually if we can do something a little bit nicer too. A better rocket launch here. Let's go to the engine, get our thrust limiter off. Let's go ahead and get our throttle up here a bit more. And then let's go ahead and put this engine in with our decouplers so that as these decouple, it fires off at the same time, and hopefully that'll give us a little bit more stability. Let's go ahead and do that. We can now that we're flying. Let's go ahead and log pressure temp data there. Let's log temperature there. Let's close that up. And fire that off. Hey, there we go. That's a much better launch. Almost like I know what I'm doing. Okay, so let's go ahead and fire that up. Start tipping this over, but again, you want to be really careful with this. so you don't just get flying out of control. Let's go ahead and tip over more. All right, we're doing pretty well here. Go ahead and throttle that down. Click X and cut off the engines. Take a look at the map real quick. Nice, this one's a bit more steep, but that's good. Give us just a little bit more. And let's hit the time warp and see how we're doing. Yeah, we should be okay. Let's just give us a little bit more vertical velocity here. And yeah, we should be plenty fine now to get up to 70,000. I misspoke. Cut that off. It's kind of hard because when you're first playing this and you haven't upgraded your communication center, in the map, you can't highlight your actual trajectory and see how high you'll get. That is an upgrade that you can get, but it's kind of tough to see that. I think we should be good now, though. Yeah. All right, now we're good. Okay, now we're up in space. Let's go ahead and do a crew report. You can see that we get some extra science from this because it's a different biome. We're near Kerbin, so let's keep that. Let's go ahead and open this up. And this one's already been used. That one's already been used. Let's go ahead and log pressure data here. This gives us more science, a lot more science, which is great. Let's log the temperature, grab that, and then let's observe the mystery goo out in space as well. Perfect. Now we got a lot of science. And I don't, just pretend that the other mission didn't happen. Okay. Let's go ahead and just time warp this up. Oh, yeah, and you can see... Oh, you can't see it anymore. You can see up there in the left-hand side, top left, it changed from just 4 to having like 10 of them or something like that. That's when you can speed things up time warp-wise when there's not any physics going on, because you're out in the vacuum of space, so you can speed up a lot faster. So really helps you from for getting from like planet to planet and stuff. Okay. Go ahead and come back down. Let's go ahead and kick this off. Beautiful. Go ahead and turn off our SAS. Wait until our drogue chute turns gray. You can see the ablator is burning off just a little bit, but we're not going fast enough to really do too much. We probably really didn't even need the heat shield. Okay, we're orange and we're yellow. And great now, so we can go ahead and kick off our heat shield, launch the drogue. Sometimes this happens, the heat shield just gets stuck to you. Let's go ahead and time warp. Go, 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 go. Okay, again, around 500 meters is when your other chute will open, so I usually try and to put that out around like 800 or something, give it time to completely fully open. There we go, nice, okay. Go ahead. Hurry up. Okay, splashdown. Sorry, I just did a little cut. Okay, and then I think we're good. Yeah, we have our crew report. We could pull these out. Let's go ahead. I want to say, yeah, I'll show you this. Let's see if I can reach them. Yeah, okay. So there's certain science experiments that you need a scientist to reset them. So you can collect the data, but then you can't restore them. I wonder if this is because I'm on Kerbin that I can restore that. A lot of times it takes an actual scientist to do that. Either way, let's go ahead and collect the data from here. And then from here, we can do this. So we still have the data. He's taken it. It's now on his persons. And since these have been reset, we can do another... Oh, these can't be controlled externally. Okay, so let's hop back in. And now we should be able to do these again. And, okay, log pressure data from the water. We'll keep that. Log temperature from the water. Good. Okay, so we're good to go. That's how you can do it. After you've landed and stuff like that, even out in space, you can come out, collect the data manually from them, and then move it back up into here. And if they're one of the ones that don't have to be reset, you can go ahead and use them again. So I hadn't done the barometer or the temperature reading in the ocean, and now I have. So let's recover the vessel. And there we go. 89 science. So we have plenty of science. It's pretty awesome. We have a lot of things we can grab. I guess a couple. We can grab 2 things from the tech tree, though. We can grab general rocketry. Let's grab that. And then we can grab 1 more of those. And the Science Junior is pretty awesome. Gives you a lot of science, but it is a big module. Flight control is nice because you get inline reaction wheels. General construction is nice because you get struts and you get the launch pad stability things. These just hook onto your actual rocket itself, which is pretty nice. Like the launch arms. And then there's advanced rocketry with bigger... this is actually a smaller engine, which is nice. It's more efficient and some other things. So for now, let's go ahead. We're at 1 hour. Let's call it there. And in the next one, we are actually going to work on orbiting Kerbal, or Kerbin. And let's see here. Let's go to the tracking station. I did want to show you this. Okay, debris. So you can see some debris that crashed down. It looks like... Where is it showing that? I don't see the debris. Is this it? Either way, let's go ahead. You can double click on the debris and it'll show you where it is. Okay, it's just floating in the ocean. And then you can go ahead and recover that. Can you not? Let's go back here. A lot of times you can recover that. If not, though, you can, like, just kind of delete it. But let's go ahead and recover that. And that'll get us a little bit more money. And yeah, okay, that's the first video of my shitty tutorial. And appreciate you guys dropping by. Hopefully you appreciate it if you're a first-time Kerbal player. And if you're not, maybe you have hundreds of hours and you're a lot better and you're just watching this to make fun of me. Either way, appreciate tips and tricks down below. And if you're having fun, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.